Okay. Hi. Welcome, everybody. I see you're chatting away here. So, welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, and I'm just mucking around with decks here because tonight we're going to talk about cards. We're going to talk about the suit of water and a little bit about love, intuition, the subconscious, and all kinds of things. So, I've got some decks kind of ready to go and other ones not so much. So, welcome. I'm just going to look at the chat and see who's here. I saw Jen was here. Hi, Jen. Hi, Kyle. Sacred Turtle, hello. And Laura, Page of Cups, welcome. Welcome, everybody. So tonight I thought, just because we're kind of swinging into Valentine's Day, and I know it's already Valentine's Day in some places in the world, and I wanted to touch on the other two suits that I haven't really talked about. And so kind of a perfect day to talk about that. So we'll look at the suit of cups and two announcements. So the first one, these are things that I've already announced before on Saturday. So my time, 11 a.m. So this is UK time. It's on another, sorry, I should have prepped this. I have no notes in front of me tonight. I'm totally winging this. I've had a really busy day. Taught a yoga class, seen all kinds of clients at home for Reiki, and I'm feeling a bit disorganized. So I'm going to do the best I can for you tonight. So on Saturday, this is a collaborative event with Wasima, Ascension Waves. And so I'll be on at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I have put an announcement in my community page. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys then. And it's not a 24-hour event. It's just a few hours, like 5 or 6 hours. So that should be fun. And I'm going to talk about chakra spreads. And I am going to be doing some live readings. So if you want to be a part of that, come and find me on Saturday on YouTube. And I've also, the registration for my upcoming chakra course is now available. So you can go to integrativehealingwithsadhana.com. On the top menu, go to workshops. And then you go to services and then workshops. And the workshop is the chakra course. And so I was kind of playing with how I wanted to do the registration. And if you're kind of curious but don't know if you want to commit for the whole course, there is a button for just doing the introduction in March. And the whole introduction is totally new. I was going to dive right in and start the course, but I added on an introduction. So we're going to do an introduction in March. And that'll give you a really good overview of the whole course. And so you can register for that and then decide if you want to do the whole thing. And if you do that and you want to do the whole thing, then I'll give you that price you paid for the introduction off the whole course. And so we'll just adjust the prices for everybody. And I just want to work with you guys. And it's really been a pleasure to get to know some of you. And I know some of my chakra stuff has got really good feedback. So I hope that there's enough interest to offer the course online. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I did a video not too long ago about the Slow Tarot. And I've had it since June, since it came out. And I did work with it a little bit. And more recently, I'd say for about 2 months, I've been working with it regularly. And so I decided finally to do a video, and it was kind of reluctantly that I did the video because I felt like I was not quite ready to do it. And then the day after I posted it, I had another chat with somebody and I realized, oh my God, that's what that is in that card. And, it's just, there's just so much to uncover in that deck. So we will look at the suit of cups in that deck. I've got the sassy burrito on the table and the dreaming way, which is a really kind of a funky cup deck, and numinous, but it's not sorted. So in the numinous, it is the vials, which is really interesting. This whole deck. So this is another deck that has taken kind of a bit of work to get to know for me. And it's a really, really interesting deck. So so I've got these 4 decks on the table for you. Dreaming Way, Slow, Sassy Burrito, and Numinous. So we're going to kind of work with that as a theme. Hi, Whale Song. Hi, Lori. How are you guys doing? So I'm hoping that you, and I changed my view for today. So I don't know, I kind of like the plain screen behind and taken down some of the personal pictures. And unfortunately, I can't plug in and do a live with my altar behind me because the internet is really bad in that corner of the house. So I have very few choices of where I can do a live, but this is what you get tonight. So I hope it's okay. The weaving behind me is a really cool story. I've spoken about my yoga teacher in the Kootenays before. So in British Columbia, southeast corner, there's a very small ashram called Ishtadad Niwas. My teacher, Shivani, so she has a small farm and an ashram. And so that weaving behind you has a lot of intention put into it. And the yarn, the wool, is from her goats. And so everything in that weaving is from her farm. So the wool and the sticks and the rocks and everything is from her land. So it's really kind of special. So yeah. I had some really specific questions that came up when I did the slow tarot video. And I think I'm just going to dive right into that deck because it was this suit in particular that there were some questions with, especially this one. If you guys know this, you know this deck. Should I turn on another light? I'm wondering. I'm going to try one more light. Hold on. I don't know. How's that? Is that weird? No, that's not good. Okay. Okay, so next week we go back to the other direction because it works way better with the light, but that's okay. So suit of cups, suit of water. So there's a few things that for me might be different than other people in looking at the suit of cups. And that is, you guys have such lovely emojis. I don't know, my emojis are so boring. I just have the standard ones, and I don't know how to do some of these fancy ones that you have. I kind of feel like I need an emoji lesson from somebody because I would like to have more variety. They look great, by the way. So I might read the Suit of Cups a little different than some people because when I think of the Suit of Cups and I think of water, and for those of you that know me, I'm always going to my yogic references and to the chakras. And I think for most people, when they think of the Suit of Cups, they go to the heart. And we're thinking about relationships and we're thinking about love. And so the tendency is to go to the heart. But in the chakras, the place really to go is into the second chakra, to the element of water, to the pelvis, to the Swadhisthana chakra. And of course, there are feelings, there are emotions, there's the issue of love in the heart space. But I think for the most part, for me, a lot of my references come through the second chakra in regards to looking at the development of the Suit of Cups. The second chakra is about relationships. It's about sex. It's about our relationship with sex. It is about the waters of the divine feminine. So we have High Priestess. The seat of Kundalini energy is, for the most part, the home of the Kundalini energy is in the second chakra. But because of, and these are the teachings that I understand, because of the kind of situation of our human condition presently, we are in kind of a dark age, and the home of Kundalini is now sitting in the Muladhara chakra and the lower chakra. This is some of the really cool stuff we'll talk about in that course. And so her home is really in the waters of the second chakra. And we also need to also refer to the moon when we're talking about this suit, because we cannot separate the whole idea of the moon and the high priestess and all of these cup cards, because they are completely interrelated. And if there's any majors that you think I have forgotten, please forgive me, because I set up really quickly for tonight's video. So I'm going to try to weave in divine feminine energy, lunar energy, the teachings of, lunar practices, and the second chakra, a little bit of the heart chakra stuff, and then the cups. So I'm going to just kind of go through some of these cards and just kind of yatter, is that a word? Yammer away. So yeah, so this is the ace in the slow. It's really, really pretty. And I think this is the dreaming way, which is I've trimmed. Looks so much better trimmed. And like I said, I don't have the numinous in order. Maybe some of those cards will come up. This is the Sasrai Brito, that beautiful cup of green chai. We talk about the divine potential, the unlimited potential that sits in the ace. And I talked about this last week, about the ace containing all of the energy, all of the teachings of the whole suit. So all of the emotions, all of the relationships, all of the heartache, the experiences, the beauty, right? There's a lot of beauty in this suit as well too, is part of that wholeness of the ace. So depending on which part you end up moving to, you've really got a part of this beautiful, beautiful card, the ace. And so when you move into the two, we're really, in this suit especially, we're looking at, that sense of separation. And I've talked about the book, The Yoga of Relationships, before. If you've never read it, it is available on Amazon. It's called The Yoga of Relationships it's published by the Amrit Institute. It's a really short book. It's a really good read, but it's one of those books that really gets you to look at the heart of relationships and why we enter into relationship. So in the ace, we're good. We're totally good. Everything is perfect, really. There's nothing wrong. But what happens when we get to the two is that all of a sudden we have this sense of separation, and we're no longer whole. And so when I look at the two, and of course all of the cards that are around it, right? Because in a reading you can't just focus on the single card. It's about, like, we are in these relationships because we're trying to get whole again. We're trying to get back together because there's something missing. There's a piece missing. There's something that we need to work on. There's something that we need to face. And so we seek out relationships so that we can get back to that wholeness and get back to that completeness. And sometimes we seek out some pretty nasty relationships. And so the Two of Cups, I think, for the most part, speaks to romantic relationships or deep friendships and deep soulful friendships. And in that, what I was saying, that those relationships it's like our journey in coming back to ourself. And so if the surrounding cards are challenging, that's great. And if the surrounding cards are beautiful, it's a heck of a lot easier. But for me, when you look at this card, or any of the Two of Cups, really, even if you have a more of a non-scenic card, there's this sense of coming together. Oh, do you know the Two of Cups in the White Sage Tarot? So there's two cups, and then there's a green ribbon that's coming at the cups are both pouring, and then the liquid is coming down. I think it's green tea as well too, and the two green ribbons. So there's that sense of wanting to come together. There's a sense of unity. And I think if we look underneath all of the energy of this whole suit, there's this longing for moving back to the ace. And I'm just going to quickly see if I can find the ace. Oh gosh, I'm just going through the numinous. This is the numinous, the extra card in this deck. Do you have this deck? It's at first when I got it, I thought, I'm not so sure about it, but it's a deck that I am coming to understand. Here's the ace in the numinous. Sorry about the glare. And doesn't that, the water, kind of look like it's forming a heart shape? It's really beautiful. Really beautiful. So I'm going to have cards and decks all mixed up. This is great. Okay. So that's what I see. That's what I see in the two is about wanting to come back together. And so that relationship is just that. You're seeking something within yourself. And you know, the Lover's card often comes up when you're doing this kind of reading. And I'm really kind of shocked, disappointed. I really think that the quickly going to choice for the Lover's card is kind of a cop-out. Of course, it's an option, but I think the Lover's card has so many layers and so many levels, and it's definitely connected to this suit, more so, I think, at a higher level kind of emotion. But there's something going on here about seeking the missing pieces within. So I don't know what you think about that, but it's something that comes up frequently. So for me anyway, in readings, here's the two in the Dreaming Way. I'm just going to see what you guys are saying in the chat, because sometimes I feel like my interpretations are a little bit out there. Jen says, you have so many beautiful decks. Most are too expensive to ship to Oz, sadly. Yeah. Oh, yes, that is my favorite suit. Laura, the suit of, so the suit of Pentacles in the numinous is just amazing. So then what happens in the three? What is the three about? And so we talked about, if you've watched other videos, so the three is that first, so you're whole, you come apart, and then you come back together in the three. And there's this beautiful divine energy. There's this sense of happiness and celebration, actually, in coming back together, because you're no longer apart, you're together. And you know, some of you talk about this, right? There's this wholeness. It's like through all the minors, it's like together, apart, together, apart, together, depart. Or you can look at it as turning within, looking without. And I think sometimes that's really helpful in kind of dissecting the energy of some of these cards. Here's the Three of Cups in the Dreaming Way. This is a mass market deck, so anybody can get this one. I brought this one out because I think the 9 and the 10 of Cups in this deck are hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So here's the Three of Cups in the slow. And if you have this one or you want to look at it, if you go to the Modern Eden Gallery, I put a link in the description box when I did this video the other day, and you can zoom in on the paintings and have a really, really good look. And so these ladies here are pouring either wine or champagne into their teacups. So in the three, there's really this sense of happiness and celebration. And isn't that what divine energy is. Think about all the divine sacred occasions where we come together in celebration. And that Three of Cups just has that really beautiful, beautiful feeling. Okay, so what's the shadow of the Three of Cups? We have cards that feel like they're really good cards, but what is the shadow of that? And I think when we go through these cards and you look to, did I show you this one? And you look to cards that are obviously happy, it's important to understand, what's on the flip side. So I don't read reversals because I believe, I feel that every single card has light and shadow within it. And so it's important to be really kind of aware and comfortable in exploring what that shadow might be. So I don't know. It's not a question I have an easy answer to, but I really invite you to consider that and contemplate that. Yeah. Just checking out what's going on over here. And sorry, my head has to turn away from the camera. So, quote nerd. Choose your friends carefully in the Three of Cups. Yeah, yeah. There's sometimes we come together because if you think about some of the organizations that you've belonged to, or the clubs or the groups over the years, and sometimes it's a habit of coming together. It's an obligation to come together, and the authenticity of the circle gets lost sometimes in the rules of the group or the association. Those are some of the things I was thinking about too. And maybe also the loss of the independence, the loss of the voice getting lost or the feelings getting lost. When people come together, this is actually really kind of important. When people come together in a group, there often comes a group mentality. And so that may be a shadow as well too. So just a thought. So the Four, right? Because we go from this coming together in the Three, and then we move away. We have the kind of separation in the Four. And generally speaking, most decks have kind of a sad looking Four of Cups. This is kind of funny, this one here. I don't know which one. Oh, there you go. So she's behind the tree, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of creepy. Here's the Four and the numinous. Yeah. So I go a couple of ways with this. So one of the things so now we're getting up to the Four, and the water is getting more abundant. So when we get kind of Four and up, I really, really watch the amount of water that's appearing in the reading. Is there a moon card? Is there a high priestess card? Are there queens? Because what happens when we get too much water? And I feel the Four is that first experience of too much water. And so when the emotions, we don't know what to do with the emotions, when the emotions get overwhelming, then it is far easier to kind of turn away, right? To check out than to be in the emotion. And I do a lot of work with people who are struggling with, or I shouldn't say that really. I think that people come to me because they're tired of suppressing, and they're kind of giving up on traditional medicine. And so they want a way to bust through that stuff. And the four for me is that early stage of not wanting to feel, not wanting to feel because it hurts too much. It just hurts too much. It's too hard. Maybe also not knowing how to feel. And I have been around a lot of mental illness personally with my children, with friends, and it seems like it's an epidemic these days. It really does. Maybe it's just talked about more, but with this whole suit, I think if you get a reading where there's a lot of cup cards that come up, I would really encourage you to be a little brave and to give voice to the querent about how they are faring, with their emotions. And we call it mental illness, but really isn't it EQ? I don't know, what would be an alternate word? It's not really mental illness, it's emotional illness, right? It's emotional illness that we perceive in this kind of strange way that it has something to do with the brain, but it's not. It's an imbalance in the emotions. And so those are some of the things that run through my head when I'm looking at the four, and then we go on to the five, and then we have to figure out what to do about the four. Overwhelmed may be a better way to look at the energy of dissatisfied and bored. Yeah, I think that's a really good way. And there is also this, I've got a lot of stuff going on right now. I have a friend who's in the hospital nursing her mom, who's not sure how long she's going to be with us. And she's one of those people that doesn't easily receive. And so when you have friends who are like this, when you know people are like this, or you're doing a reading where maybe this is the first card that's pulled, and I don't know, I just think there's an obligation to offer again, because some people have a really hard time receiving. And if you get a lot of other cards that are about giving and receiving, like maybe the Temperance card comes up, or maybe the Six of Pentacles comes up in the reading, right? Then that issue is going to really come to the forefront. So those are some of my thoughts on that. So with the five, so the three we came together, the four we kind of like turn away, and the five, there feels like to me like a bit of a, so the fives are stressful, right? And in RWS clone decks, but remember what I said last week, that five is a sacred number as far as the pentagram and the energy of that and all of the elements coming together in the five. So depending on, I would really encourage you to find, first of all, at least the light and the shadow of the fives, because I didn't say, what is the light of this one? Well, I think the light of the Four of Cups is that, much like the Hanged Man, right? You're giving yourself permission for a time out. And that's not a bad thing, right? Because you need to process this as long as you feel, right? As long as you do the feeling. And then we go to this card of despair. And despair. What do we got here? This poor kid on the ground. And I wonder, so there's a couple things that came up for me in this card. One is, I think it's really cool, in the mirror, you can see the open door in the background. So to me, that's a reminder that there's always an open door somewhere or an open window somewhere, right? So to look for the light, and to, most of us say focus on the 2 non-broken cups, not on the 3 broken cups, right? So look to the positive. the cup is half full, it's not half empty. So lots of different ways to um, to word that. Here's the dreaming way. But I think it to hop to the negative of this Five of Cups isn't necessarily where. So when the fives come up, when the challenging cards come up, I try to close my mouth and just look at the big picture, look at the whole story. Because for some people, this might be, oh, thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Okay. I knew I was feeling this way, and it's time. It's time for me to move in a new direction. I really need to move in a new direction. And I came to this reading today so you would confirm that, right? So, what's the difference between the 5 and the 8, right? So, we'll have to kind of discuss that a little bit tonight as well, too. So, what's going on over here, guys? Hello. Michelle is here. Michelle Austin. North Vancouver. I grew up in North Vancouver. Do I know you? I mean, it's a big city, but hello, Michelle. Welcome. I grew up in Lynn Valley, Michelle. And don't cry over spilt milk or tea. Yes. Or broken wine glass on the white, broken red wine glass on the white carpet. Don't spill over that either. The image of the little boy makes me want to fix the problem. Maybe another way to look at the 5 is a way through the challenge or adjusting. Yeah. So, you know, the open window we had in the slow. So there's the rainbow in this one. So it feels like maybe a little self-absorbed. Is that too harsh? A little self-absorbed. So in the, it's very, because it's really close to the 4. And I feel like we're really early in the suit. So all of these things are still very, very manageable. So maybe, and it's really cool. Don't you love it when you do a reading and you get cards in sequence? Like you get the 4 of Cups and the 5 of Cups and maybe the 10 of Cups, because it really kind of tells and helps to tell the story. But the 5 of Cups feels that way to me, like a little like I never want to belittle somebody's emotions or to, you know, to make light of people's emotions. I want to encourage them to be in them. But it feels to me like that person who tells the story, the same story over and over and over. And I know you all have friends like that. You all have people in your family or at work like that. They never stop telling the same story. It's like they can't move on from that. They can't let go of it. That's what the 5 of Cups feels like to me. Does that work for you? Yeah. So 6. So when I think of 6s, I think it's the double 3, a bit of harmony. Feels kind of good, right? Feels kind of good. And I actually like the 6 of Cups for the most part. And I think as it's a really good card, it's an easier card to see the light and the shadow. You know, like some cards, it's harder to find the shadow. Some cards, it's harder to find the light. But I think this card is really easy to see the light and the shadow. And so I'll share with you kind of how I view that. I wish I put the numinous in order. Sorry, guys, because hopefully I can find a few more of them. Oh, there's the 10. So this 6 card. One of the things I think in avoiding emotion, or we could talk about death actually, because that's a really kind of a good thing to talk about. And I don't know what kind of community you guys come from, but I find there's a tendency these days to not want to have services for people when they die. Oh, I don't want to have a funeral. I don't want to have a celebration of life. Do you hear that a lot? I hear that so much of this kind of dummying down of death. And it saddens me because I know the consequences, the long-term consequences, the long-term health consequences of not celebrating death, of not going through the process of the death. And so, yeah, why am I talking about this? I don't know. So in the six, there is that energy of, oh, so one of the things, sorry, I've got so many things on my mind. I always encourage people, and the word altar is a little woo-woo for some people, so I try to find other words other than altar. But in some cultures, it's perfectly normal to have an ancestral altar. And you go there, you light a candle in the morning, you say hi to great grandma, you say hi to auntie or whoever's on the altar, and it's just part of life. It's totally normal. And then on birthdays or anniversaries or Day of the Dead or whatever, you decorate it a little more and you have a celebration. Or if you're in Japan, we talked about Japan last week, there's a day for that. There's a stat holiday to celebrate the ancestors. And we don't do that in North America. We don't have an ancestral altar. Sometimes, we have a grave site we can go to or something like that. And some people are really good at that. But I feel kind of sad that is not part of our culture. And I'm so glad and I'm so grateful that I have learned other practices through other people, other teachers, other teachings, other trainings, because I really respect that whole process. And I think it's amazing. And I love what Lacey Bryant did on the death card in the Slow Tarot. So I'm just going to have a look here. I am a Westvan Oracle Peep fan. You've read for me before, and I've taken a few of your classes. Okay, so I will, I'll look at my notebook and I'll try to put a face to your name, Michelle. My mom is adamant that she doesn't want a funeral. She is my mom. She wants us, so is my mom. She wants us to have a party and tell mom stories, not a funeral. So if you are a devout, different organized religions have different rules, and some people, you have to follow certain traditions and so forth. But I think regardless of whether it's a funeral or an Irish wake or a celebration of life, that process is about the catharsis for the people who are left behind. And the person who's gone doesn't need it. It's about the people who are left behind. So they have something to do with the experience of moving through the death. So the reason I'm talking about this is we were at the Six and the Six of Cups. And it seems that I'm often asking people, because the Six of Cups speaks to nostalgia. And I think sometimes people get overly nostalgic because they haven't processed all of the sadness around the relationships that have been lost. And that can go over lost loves as well, too, whether they died or whether they disappeared out of your life or they broke your heart. All of this stuff needs to be processed. And I was doing a reading yesterday for a lovely Indian girl who's about to move into an arranged marriage. And she was very shy and very quiet and didn't share very much. But that she did kind of hint that she did love somebody, and she was having a very hard time letting that go. But she knows she doesn't have a choice. And there was all these choice cards that came up in the reading, and I understand the culture and the difficulty. And so one of the things I offered to her was to take the best, find the gold in that relationship that you have to let go of, and just keep it in a little space in your heart. It will always be there and you can always cherish it, but you do need to let it go, right? Because she needs to move with her culture and move forward into a new relationship. And if she moves into the new relationship with a tremendous sadness and resentment and, I don't know, a feeling of incompletion in that relationship, then she's not going to move into a healthy relationship with the arranged marriage. And her question was, will the arranged marriage work out? And so I was looking at all of the cards, and there were a lot of twos. This whole thing about choice, choice, choice was everywhere. The Lover's card was the first card of the reading. And so that's what was coming through for me, was it's a choice to find the happiness in the arranged marriage. And so it's a choice with what you're going to do with those emotions that you need to leave behind. And it was a really challenging reading. And she told me probably a little more than she should have, but for me to like really kind of speak without too much counseling. I felt like I was going more on the counseling than on the reading, but the cards were confirming everything. So yeah. So for the 6, when the nostalgia is feeling more to the negative side, then that's where I go. I go to like, okay, find the gold, find the celebration. Did you celebrate? Maybe you need to celebrate now. Maybe you need to renew your vows, or maybe you need to, go to some old albums and get a picture out of the album, or get a picture off your computer and frame a photo, things like that. The other time with that 6 of Cups, invariably it's going to come up when you're going to some kind of a reunion. And the cards around it will speak to the energy of the reunion. So it's a really cool card when it comes up for that kind of thing. So let's go on. 7, 8, 9, and so forth. Okay. Yes, we do need some way to say goodbye. So 7 of Cups. I hate that card. I really do. I don't know what to do with the 7 of Cups. All those cups with the weird things in them. Sometimes those things in the cups have appeared in other places in the tarot deck. Sometimes they're just totally random. I don't know. It's just one of those cards. It's kind of like, I really have a hard time with that card. And so we need to come back to, we've talked a lot about, we haven't talked about kind of the subconscious stuff and the second chakra stuff of this suit. So you have 7 cups. You have 7 things in 7 cups. And how many times when you are reading this card, I kind of feel like the cop-out is to go, you have 7 choices, or you have too many choices, or you've got too much on your mind, or you're overthinking it. But overthinking it means swords, right? So that's more like an 8 of Swords, not a 7 of Cups, unless you have an 8 of Swords, a 7 of Cups, and all those other kind of cards in a reading. So 7 cups, 7 emotions, 7 challenging emotions, overwhelming emotions, feeling like you're just inundated with too much feeling. Yeah, I just really, really don't like that card. And I don't know why. I don't know why I don't like it. So let's go back to the in, out thing. So the 6 was coming together, and the 7 is the card of separation, right? So no wonder we can't pull it together, because all those pieces are out there. And it just feels really, really sticky to me. I don't know. I just kind of feels like a childish tantrum in a way. And I don't know, I'm going to read, because I know somebody said something here. So many people hate 7 of Cups. I love it. So Jen, what do you love about the 7 of Cups? I would love to know what you love about it. I'm going to pull a couple more, because I'm going to look at it in a dreaming way here. Where are we at in the dreaming way? Okay, so there's the 5, 6, 7. So here's another deck with a whole bunch of cups with random things in them. So is it a card where you just say pick one? Pick one, focus on one, because you can't focus on 7 emotions. You can't focus on 7 samskaras. You can't focus on 7 issues at the same time. Just pick one, work through one thing and focus on it. Like, is this a card about because you're so scattered? Is this about you need to come back together again, right? You need to come back to the whole. Why are you so distracted? What is distracting you? Why aren't you what are you avoiding, right? So it does feel that way to me, and maybe that's why I don't like it, because it feels like avoidance of something, avoidance of looking at what is really the issue. So yeah, I would it's a lot easier to read when there's other cards around it, but I hope some of those things kind of work for you. So we have, it's like in the 7, we're so scattered. It's just too much. And if we look at the 7 in relation to the 8, it makes perfect sense. But if we look at it in isolation, it doesn't sometimes. So that's what I mean. The 7 really needs to go with another card to make sense, so you know what it's about. Excuse me. So there's the 7. And then here's the 8. The 8's really pretty in this deck. So we've got the moon hiding behind that tree with the little birds on the tree. So for me, that 8 is like, I'm done. I've done everything I can. I've done all the processing that I can. And I need to just give myself some space. It feels to me like the 8 of Cups is moving towards the Hanged Man, or the 8 of Cups is moving towards the Hermit. That's what it feels like. It feels like you need time to separate from the 7. So I used to see the 8 of Cups more like a 6 of Swords. And I guess that's always a question too, right? What's the difference between the 6 of Swords and the 8 of Cups? And that comes back to the energy of the element. So very specifically, we're talking about deep subconscious feelings, working through your muddy, murky stuff, is what the Suit of Cups is about, as opposed to the Swords, which could be moving away from kind of a communication conflict, or a breakdown in, quite literally a breakdown in language, a breakdown in something to do with, I don't know, just something to do with the mind, right? It feels like an intellectual battle, not a battle of wisdom. And there's this separation from the heart in the Swords. There's like this energy of being too far away from the heart space, and the Cups are also far away from the heart space. We've got the solar plexus in between. So both, the mind and the water and the air, need to come closer together. And so in a way, they're just coming at it from a different angle. So that's kind of how I see the difference between those two. But the 8 of Cups, it feels very like, okay, let's do this. And it always seems to be crystal clear in a reading. It doesn't seem to be one of those cards that there's ever any question about. Oh, there's all those beautiful emojis again. So Lori, those 5 heart emojis, I really like that. Hello, Ange. I'm just going to scroll back here because I missed something here. Lori says, I do too. I see it as imagination, ideas, and breakthroughs. Okay, so there's the light of the Seven of Cups, right? We haven't talked about intuition also, because this suit, when we look about that feminine energy, so this whole suit is a reflection of the waters of the feminine energy and the intuition and the whole lunar side of the body, the lunar side of the brain. So for sure, yes, it is definitely a wild imagination. I know sometimes people use the word delusion as well too, but that's also a negative one. So I like what Lori said. So imagination. So imagination versus delusion. And I think the surrounding cards are going to make that a little clearer. Yeah. Yes. Hello, hello. Okay, let's get back. I'm going to scroll back down. So then we have the Nine of Cups. And I think the Nine of Cups is really kind of a fun card. Yes, ethics as well. Ethics are also judgment. You know, there's a sense of, definitely a sense of judgment in the swords, right? That's not coming from anywhere spiritual. That's coming from something that's determined from humans. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. So in the Nine of Cups, here's a more shadowy perspective. 9 cups, that's a lot. That's a lot. So I don't know where historically the wish card came from. Like what Lori was saying, Whale Song was saying, if there was a wish card, then isn't this the wish card? Right? As opposed to this being the wish card. But I know the Nine of Cups is the wish card. And when it comes up in a reading, everybody goes, oh, yay, I got the Nine of Cups. There is, I don't have Osho Zen on the table. It's one that calls it laziness, I believe, laziness. So we kind of get everything that we wish for. And then what happens when you get everything that you wish for? Then what do? Do you kind of just sit back and enjoy it all and forget to, you know, to do new things or to move in new directions? And so I think that card is pretty easy to find the shadow. I'm a little bit confused by this Nine of Cups. So she is, I would say, content. She's content. She has a full cupboard, a full collection of teacups, but there's no one else around her. And isn't that the way often in the Nine of Cups? It's a soul lonely person. And that is the case in most of the nines. There's only one person. And so if we look at the coming, the out and in, the out and the in, so the 9 is a coming together. It's a coming back to wholeness. It's a third completion. So it's a highly spiritual card. It's a high frequency card. It's a high level of energy. And so if you look at it that way, it's a really beautiful card. But some people might not be able to cope or manage with that much emotion, that much energy. And so I think that's why sometimes deck creators portray it in a rather kind of sorrowful way. This one has breasts. I hope breasts are okay. So I know this one took me a while to uncover, but she is, and this is a beautiful metaphor. So this woman is emerging through, I believe, a lotus. I haven't read the guidebook in ages. Maybe I should, I don't know if I even have it here, pull it out. But I'm going to tell you my interpretation. You can read the guidebook later if you have the Sasuraibito. If you don't know this deck, this is the deck. I love this deck. Stacia Barantine is the creator. So she's emerging. She's sitting in the lotus, right? And so the teachings, the metaphor of the lotus is that seed sits in the murky water, in the mud at the bottom of the pond, and the water above is murky, it's dirty. And so somehow that seed at the bottom has no idea that it's going to bloom into a beautiful flower. And you see this metaphor in lots of different ways in different tarot decks and lots of different teachings. But with the lotus has so that seed is that Ace of Cups, right? That potential energy. And then that seed is directed by the sun, follows the light of the sun. So this is really beautiful. Like this is like the Kundalini thing, right? So the water is in the second chakra. The sun is in the above the Sahasrara chakra, and so the crown chakra. And so the water, the seed is rising up towards the sun, and then eventually emerges into this beautiful water. And I see this Nine of Cups as that kind of emergence card. And so the wish card, the getting what you want, is due to your processing, to your courage of being in your emotions and dealing with all of the crap in your subconscious and your unconscious. It feels like the wish is a lot more spiritual in this card. It's really kind of beautiful. And then there's all these kind of, looks like cherry blossoms all around her, and she's in celebration of her femininity. She's touching her body, and there's no inhibition. It's really, really lovely. So that is why I have so many decks, because you learn something from different deck creators, or you don't learn it from them. They remind you of something that is already within you. And all of this knowledge is within every single one of us. It's just that we've forgotten. So I want you to remember that, because these deck creators are simply stimulating stuff that's locked away. And then we move on to the 10. Oh, I'm going to show you the 9 and the 10 in the dreaming way, because it is. Oh, I showed you the 9 already. Where did I put it? So there's the 9. And here's the 10. So funny. There's a card in Poppy Palin's deck that reminds me of this one too. There's a kid in a playpen, and the mom or the grandma's at the window, and the dog is barking. It's really overwhelming. So there is this sense of, for sure, there's this sense of joy, but also remember, so with the 10, we've moved out again, but it's a completion. So completions for me kind of have this sense of coming together. So the 10 doesn't really fit into that in out thing. So it is a completion of the suit. It is a saturation of the suit. So I've used that word before. So especially with the more challenging ones, as the 10 of Swords, the 10 of Wands is a saturation of that energy. So there's a lot of that energy focused in that card. And so for that reason, these 9s and 10s, it's a lot easier to see, whether you need to speak to the light or to the shadow of the card. Yeah. Did I show you the 10? I don't know if this one is, this is the 10 in the slow. I feel like there's so much more to the 10 of Cups, and there's not a lot like in this. I don't really like this one either. Oh, I should tell you. Okay, so this is another thing that I've been working on for ages. And I was going to do a hashtag video called 78 Card Challenge. And the challenge, this is a personal challenge I've been working on for ages. So if you want to start working on it, it's fine. Eventually, one day, I might make a video. And that is you need to have at least 78 decks to do this challenge, because the challenge was to choose the best card representing that from 78 decks or more for that card. And then, yeah. And so the criteria, my criteria was you can't repeat a deck. You can only choose one card from every deck and put together a deck with 78 cards from 78 decks. And I don't know which card, if I've done this one yet, but I don't know. I feel like the 10 of Cups, it's hard to illustrate. Like, do you have a favorite 10 of Cups card that you can think of off the top of your head? Even though in the 9 of Cups, there aren't any people around, perhaps the cups represent the different bonds and relationships we have collected. Of course, this is more Rider-Waite-Smith. I know which card you mean about Poppy's deck. Yeah. So, yeah, and I'm sure if I had that list in front of me, I would tell you which one I picked for the 10 of Cups. It's not one of those cards that really, I feel, is done well in a lot of decks. It's hard, right? Some of these are really hard to illustrate, and I know that because I've been working with this one a lot lately, that some of these cards, people were like, oh, that's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. Well, some are just really, really hard to do. So let's go on to the quartz, because this is easy for me. Yeah, I've been working with the quartz a lot, and I feel like I like it when quartz cards come up. I really enjoy working with quartz cards. And so if you haven't seen these, I'll show you these ones. It's so one. This kid gets the prize. I said this in my video. Cutest card, cutest kid in the deck. This one gets the prize for best metaphor. This one people are kind of meh on. And this one I'm really going to speak to because people are not really connecting to this card. So I'm going to speak to that King of Cups. But let's just kind of go through. So pages. When I look at the 16 court cards, I try to remember, do my best to remember, whether I'm reading for myself or reading for other people, that all 16 of those cards are aspects of ourself. And what? And at any given point, any given week, day, year, any one of those 16 cards can shine back at us because we need to bring our attention there, because we have missed something, because we need encouragement. For some reason, that court card is shining back. So the question always comes up, well, is this a reflection of me or is this about somebody else? And to me, that's a very simple answer, right? So it's such a simple answer. And I touched on this earlier, and that is every single relationship that we enter into is about us. We choose all of these relationships because we have something to learn, right? It's not random, these relationships that are in our lives. The people that annoy us the most are our greatest teachers. They're there for a reason, right? Because we have stuff, saying it gently, to process. And so any one of these faces can shine back at us at any given time. And we're lucky. We're lucky that we are in an age, in a time where gender identification is becoming more, more awareness is coming forth with gender identification, and we're more able to talk about it. Not in all communities, I understand that. Here's the page from the Sasa Bright. I speak Japanese. Sa su dai bito. It's on the end of the box here. Sasurai Bito. It means wandering person, right? Sasurai Bito. So we're lucky, right? Because it just gives us an opportunity to talk about that. So I've been rewatching Grey's Anatomy, and there is in season 15 there is a story of a that's not the right. I was going to say gender fluid, non-binary soul in one of the episodes. She's in a couple of they are in a couple of the episodes, and I'm really glad that that's coming forward. I have had quite a few clients in the last 2 years where I have had an opportunity to discuss breast removal, dealing with parents and family and community through transition, and not necessarily transitioning from one gender to the other, but transitioning to a neutral gender. And so when I say all of these aspects are within us, I really believe that. I really believe that if we can be as strong and comfortable and beautiful in our power and our strength, and if we can be as assured and confident in our more mental and lunar aspects, that we're all eventually working all of those 16 pieces together to create this wholeness. And those 4 pages are that inner child, that unprocessed inner child stuff. Those 4 nights are the unfinished, impulsive, risky, active stuff that we haven't done, right? And the queens and the kings are about the kind of the mastery of the energy. And so it's really lovely. Here's these 2. I just love these 2. They just feel so content and so beautiful. And so I'm going to just check the time, and I'm going to talk to this king that has disturbed a lot of people. Okay, so have a good look at this king, and this is kind of where I'm going to end tonight, unless there's any questions. I will read the chat back in a minute. So he is, I'm sorry, the light is weird. I'm going to go back to my other setup next time. So he has a gray, look at this. The queen has a blue sky. The king has a gray sky. The queen does have green water. It's just not choppy and full of garbage. And they both look happy. They both look very relaxed. So the main difference is that he has a gray sky, and there's a lot of random weird things floating in the water. And he is just like not paying any attention to the stuff that's in the water. So my question is, what does that murky water represent? And this is a question that can be brought into every single one of the cup cards. What does the murky water represent? What do the challenging cup cards represent? That murkiness, the dirty water, the polluted water, right? So these are the difficult emotional experiences. These are the challenging samskaras that we are working through, the karmic patterns. These are our emotional triggers. These are all the things that make us feel less than comfortable. But this king is sitting in his crap, quite literally, floating in his crap. He is holding space for all of us, and he's content. He's utterly content sitting in everybody's murky water. Substitute whatever word you want in there. And so the King of Cups is at this place where he's been through so much. And unlike the Five of Cups, I was saying, that's kind of the person that can't get out of their story. He's so far past that. He can hold space to listen to you and all of your stories. He's been there. He's been back many times. Like the energy of the King of Cups is that kind of gentle soul who will you really feel listened to. You really feel like you've been heard. And when you sit with that person, there's this sense of comfort, and you are able to open up. So I understand why people don't like this card, because he's a little smirky and smirky murky smirky murky on his pink chair. But I think this shows us that if we can be content when things get challenging, then things won't be so hard, right? So something like that. I just have a couple other thoughts, but I'm going to see what you guys are typing away here. All right. I like the wooden tarot. Yes. 10 of Cups is so beautiful, Laura. I totally agree with you. So Kyle, I'm not sure what is a little concerning. If you want to type it again, let me know. He's trying to control the outside or others' emotions. He's trying to control. Do you feel that way? Okay, so maybe that could be a shadow side, because we do need to look to light and to shadow. So all of the kings represent the energy of fire, right? So if you go with that, you don't have to go that way, but generally speaking, all of the kings are right? They're all phalluses. They have that energy of fire. So on the shadow side, for all of the kings, there can be domineerance, there can be overbearingness. Also, another shadow side of the King of Cups is you can go to like alcoholism, right? Drinking too much. For sure that comes up. I mean, you can look at a card like Housewives Tarot. The Suit of Cups in the Housewives Tarot is about alcoholism. It's about drinking way too much. But that also was the culture of that time. Come home from work, have a drink, have 3 drinks, that kind of thing. So sometimes I forget and I don't mention the light and the shadow of every single card, but please know that when I'm reading, that is always a consideration. He has discarded his emotions. I also see it as he's purged the burden of his emotions, hence the murkiness of the outside, whilst he's emotionally content inside. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to kind of spin this one. A little concerning that we choose relationships based on something we need to learn. I'm trying to think of where my head is at in one particular relationship. What am I after? Shiver. That's why we're here. We're here. This is a journey. It's not supposed to be like we're not here. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy, but it's hard to go there, right? It's hard to be in it all the time. And sometimes we just need to forget about all of the teachings, right? And just kind of step back. But if we can kind of come back and check in on a regular basis, then things will be good, right? And I think that's why we're reading cards. And the more you play with your cards, the more you practice, the more you have this. Look at this one. She's the page. Isn't that sweet? Here's the king in this one. Totally different, hey? Totally different perception. Look. So, yeah. And what I was going to say that I forgot to say was, you know how sometimes there is that separation. So in a straight up RWS deck, there definitely is that separation of the king from the water, because there's some kind of a concrete thing, it looks like. Yeah. So you might want to speak to that. So I think that is a wrap for tonight. So I hope, oh, and I am going to do the A to Z if you're Canadian, the A to Z if you're American. Get to know your tarot tubers. I have everything ready on my desk, so I am going to do that video probably tomorrow. And I have lots of things to share with you, so you can look forward to that. And thank you all very much for being here tonight. It's always great to chat with you. Stay well, my friends. Namaste.